The Count cries at his wife's grave, not knowing she is alive and watching him from nearby. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The driver turned on the narrow road and the cemetery wall came into view, low and grey against the pale morning. Elise pulled her hood farther over her hair. Her fingers shook, and she hid them in the folds of her cloak so the man would not see. "Will you wait, madame?" he asked without turning, his voice rough with sleep. "Behind the trees," she answered. "Where the road bends. I shall not be long." He gave a small shrug. "As you wish, madame." She did not correct him. Madame, widow, stranger. All the words suited her badly now. The carriage stopped with a small jolt. Elise took a breath that did almost nothing, then stepped down, careful not to let her shoes slip on the half-frozen earth. "Do you come here every week?" the driver dared to ask. "I think I have seen you before." "Not every week," she said. "Only when I cannot bear not to." He frowned, as if he did not understand, then tipped his cap and climbed down to lead the horses away from the entrance. That suited her. She wanted no eyes at her back. She walked alone to the iron gate. The cemetery was quiet. A thin mist lay over the stones, not thick enough to hide anything, only enough to make every shape uncertain for a second before it became itself. Her steps knew the path now. Past the white cross with the broken arm, past the angel with the chipped wing, to the row of graves newer than the rest, to the stone with her own name carved upon it. Elise Beaumont, Comtesse de Beaumont. The letters were clean and cold. She had come early, as always, before the priest, before the widows with their heavy veils, before any servant might think it wise to watch who entered and who left. She had come early to do the one foolish, selfish thing she allowed herself. At the foot of the stone she knelt quickly and placed the small pressed flower she had brought, wrapped in a strip of ribbon faded from its original color. Her fingers moved without thinking, tying the knot the way she always had when she sealed a letter to Louis. 2 loops, 1 twist, an almost invisible fold. A sign he had once teased her about. "You tie everything as if it were a secret," he had said, smiling. "Some things are," she had replied. Now she straightened the little offering with clumsy care and stood again. "You should not have done this," she whispered to herself. "You promised you would never leave a sign. You promised you would stay dead." But she had woken in the night with his face in her mind. Not the composed, distant face people saw at receptions, the tired one he wore when he believed himself unobserved. It had followed her into her dreams. When dawn came, she could bear the distance no longer. Once, she had told the physician months ago. "Let me see him once." He had looked at her with tired eyes. "Madame, every step is a risk." "I know. But if I stay hidden all my life and never see him again, what have I saved?" He had had no answer to that. So she had found a driver who asked no questions, and she had come. Now, standing in front of the stone that declared her dead, she slipped behind the old yew tree that grew a little to the right. From there she could see the path clearly, and yet remain half concealed in its shadow. The air was colder than she had expected. It bit through the wool of her cloak and found the thin linen beneath. She pressed her back to the tree and tried to be still. He would come. He always came. "When does he come?" she had asked the old servant woman who carried tiny scraps of news to her. "Early," the woman had said, "before the house wakes. I have seen him pass the kitchen door when it is barely light. He thinks we do not notice." "Does he speak?" Elise had asked, the word catching at the back of her throat. "I am not close enough to hear," the woman had replied softly. "But he stays, child, he kneels, he stays." So Elise waited now, her breath small and shallow in the morning air. At first, only the distant bells of a church marked the time. Then another sound reached her, the faint crunch of footsteps on the path. Her heart began to beat so loudly she feared the sound would give her away. Louis appeared between the stones. For a moment she thought she had conjured him from memory. He wore a dark coat, simple for a man of his rank, his hair tied back with careless haste. His shoulders seemed broader, as if grief had pressed on them and made them heavier. Or perhaps she had forgotten how he looked when he was not dressed for company. He walked without haste but with purpose, as if he knew every uneven stone under his feet. When he reached the grave, he stopped, and his face changed. She had seen that face once before, when his father died. It was the look of a man who has lost something he believed would always be there, Only now it was because of her. He took off his gloves slowly, as though each finger required an effort. Then he knelt, one knee sinking into the cold earth, and rested his bare hand on the edge of the stone. "Good morning, Elise," he said. Her name in his voice struck her like a blow. She had imagined this moment 100 times, but always in silence. She had never allowed herself to think he might speak to the stone as if she could hear him. "You see, I have come again," he went on. "It seems I am a very stubborn man." There was a faint attempt at humor in the words, but his voice broke on the last syllable. Elise pressed her fingers into the bark behind her. The roughness kept her from sliding down. Louis drew a long breath, his gaze fixed on the carved letters. "They tell me I must be reasonable," he said, "that a man cannot live as if his life ended with his wife's, that I must think of the family, the estate, the name, that grief has its proper time, and then it must be put in its place. Neatly, like a book on a shelf." He was silent for a moment. "Tell me, Elise," he whispered, "how does one put you in your place?" It was too much. Elise's eyes filled, and she pressed her lips together so tightly the strain hurt. She dared not make a sound. He went on, almost as if he answered his own question. "They say I must marry again. Cousin Henri says it kindly, you know how he is. He speaks of duties and alliances, of children who will need a mother. Others are less delicate. They say the revolution is on people's lips, that the air is full of unrest, that a man in my position cannot appear weak." He laughed shortly, the sound without joy. "Weak, because I walk here in the mornings. Because I cannot look at the blue silk you wore to Madame de Verneuil's supper without feeling my throat close. Because when I sit alone at night, I hear your footsteps, and then remember, again and again, that they are gone." His hand tightened on the stone. His knuckles were white. "You see, my love," he said quietly, "they do not understand. I do not come here to indulge in sadness. I come because this is the only place where I can speak the truth." Elise's tears slipped down hot against her cold cheeks. She did not bother to wipe them. He bowed his head. His shoulders shook once, then again, as if he tried to contain something and failed. "I am so tired, Elise," he said, the words barely audible. "Tired of pretending I am only a widower who will in time choose another wife. Tired of hearing your name spoken softly, as if it were a delicate thing that might break if they say it too loudly. Tired of this house that is full of you and yet empty." He paused, his voice thickened. "And tired," he added, "of wondering whether I failed you." Her breath caught. "No," she whispered into the bark, though she knew he could not hear her. "No, Louis, not you." But he went on, the words pouring out now that the first had come. "I dream," he said. "I dream of small things, of you laughing in the gallery, of the way you used to scold me when I came in late from the stables with mud on my boots, of you sitting at your desk, head bent over a letter, lips moving when you read. In the dreams I do not reach you in time. You call my name, and I turn away to greet some guest, to sign some paper, to answer some pointless question. And when I look back, you are gone." He lifted his head, his eyes dry now but bright with something fierce. "I know I did not cause your illness," he said. "The physician tells me so. Everyone tells me so. Yet your absence feels like a debt I have not paid. As if I should have seen something, listened more, attended to your unease instead of to my accounts and my letters." Elise's heart clenched. She remembered the evenings when she had tried to speak of the strange looks at court, the hurried whispers that stopped when she entered a room. She remembered his distracted nods, his promise to talk of it after the harvest, after the next council. When things are calmer, what would it give him now to know that she had kept the worst of it from him? Louis brushed his thumb across the cold stone, as if he touched the back of her hand. "I am speaking too much of myself," he said softly. "Forgive me. You always said I could be unbearably serious." His mouth curved for a second, then straightened. "Do you remember," he asked, "how angry you were with me when I spoke of duty instead of bringing you the book you had asked for?" She remembered. She had wanted a volume of poems. He had forgotten it 3 times. "I told you," he continued, "that certain responsibilities could not wait. You answered that I treated you as if you were a pleasant distraction from my important work, instead of the reason it mattered at all." He shook his head. "You were right. You were always more right than I allowed you to be." He fell silent for a long moment. The cemetery seemed to hold its breath with him. Finally he spoke again, and this time his voice had the tone of a man stepping past a wall he has built himself. "I came today," he said, "to ask you a question. I know how foolish that sounds. You are beyond my questions. But if I do not ask it here, I will never ask it at all." He inhaled sharply. "They urge me to remarry," he said. "They say it is time, that a year is enough, that a man must not cling too tightly to what has been taken from him. They tell me of this woman and that woman, of their virtues, their estates, their pretty manners. They speak as if I am choosing a horse." His lips tightened. "I do not know if I will be given a choice in the end," he admitted. "The world is changing. Titles are less secure than they once were. Perhaps I will be asked to make a match for reasons that have nothing to do with the heart." He closed his eyes briefly. "So I ask you, in this foolish way, one last time," he said, "what would you have me do? Do I honor you by refusing everyone, by living as a man half alive? Or do I betray you if I accept that you are gone and that I must walk forward?" Elise shook her head violently, though he could not see. "You do not betray me by living," she whispered. "You betray me by killing yourself slowly." But she had no voice here. Only the stone answered him. Lewis's shoulders sank. "You see," he said, "I do not even know what you would say. I think you would tell me to marry if I must, that you were not so fragile as to demand an eternal monument of sorrow. But I also know how you looked at me when I spoke of convenience. I know you believed that marriage without love is a polite form of prison." His hand slid from the stone to his knee. "I cannot give you an answer today," he said. "I can only promise I will not let them decide for me while I am half asleep. If I must choose another life, I will do it awake, remembering you, not forgetting you." He bowed his head again. For the first time since he knelt, real sobs shook him, deep and low, as if something inside him had broken and could not be forced together again. Elise could not bear it. Every sound tore through her. "This is my fault," she breathed. "I did this to you." She covered her mouth with her hand, trying to stifle the small sound that escaped. The bark against her back dug into her shoulders. She welcomed the pain. Louis's sobs quieted slowly. He wiped his face with the back of his hand, like a man who no longer cares how he looks. "I will try," he said at last hoarsely. "That is all I can promise you. I will try to live in a way that would not shame you. I will try to be less blind to what happens around me, and I will come while I am allowed. When they tell me it is too much, I will still come. Until the day I cannot." He placed his hand flat on the stone one last time. "Forgive me," he whispered, "for everything I did not see, for everything I did not say, for letting you carry the weight alone, even when you tried to speak and I was deaf to you." Elise closed her eyes. She remembered the last night, the threats, the hurried voices, the plan the physician laid before her, the choice to vanish so that Louis would not be destroyed with her. She remembered thinking, he will be safe, he will heal, he will find laughter again. She had not imagined this. Louis rose slowly as if the earth did not want to release his knee. He looked older when he stood. Not in his features, but in the set of his mouth, in the way his gaze moved over the stone. He bent to pick up his gloves, then stopped. At the base of the grave, where the earth met the carved stone, something caught his eye. A small, pale shape against the darker ground. The pressed flower. The ribbon. Elise's breath stopped. She had forgotten for a moment that she had left it there. In all the intensity of listening, in the hurt and the longing, she had forgotten that she had given herself away. Louis frowned. He crouched, the movement slow, curious. His fingers hovered over the little offering without touching it. "A flower?" he murmured. "Who has been here?" His gaze swept the cemetery. Elise pressed herself deeper into the shadow of the tree. The trunk was nothing between them. If he walked just a little closer, he would see her. He looked back at the ribbon. It was tied in the way she always tied her knots. 2 loops, 1 twist, the small fold at the end. He studied it for a long time. Too long. "It cannot be," he whispered. His hand trembled slightly as he reached out, his fingertips a breath away from the ribbon, while in his mind a single forbidden thought rose like a spark in the dark. Has Elise somehow been here? Louis's fingers brushed the edge of the ribbon. Elise did not wait to see more. She turned and moved away from the tree as quietly as she could, each step careful, each breath controlled. The mist hid her a little, but she did not trust it. Do not run, she told herself. Running draws eyes. She walked as if she only happened to be there, as if she were a woman crossing the cemetery on some private errand. When she reached the bend in the path, she risked one last glance back. Louis was still kneeling, the flower and ribbon in his hand now. His head bowed over them as if they were some fragile relic, her throat closed. She left. The driver waited where she had told him, under the bare trees near the road. He looked up when he heard her approach. "Finished already, madame?" he asked. "Yes," she said. Her voice came out steady by some miracle. "It was shorter than I thought. Let us go." He opened the carriage door. "Back to the same place?" "To the same place," she replied. She climbed in and sat in the corner, drawing the cloak tight around her. The door closed with a small thud. The wheels began to move. Only then did she let her head fall back against the worn cushion. The picture of Louis kneeling by the stone would not leave her, nor would the sound of his voice. "You should not have spoken," she whispered. "You should have kept your thoughts to yourself, as you always did when others were present. Then I would not have known." She closed her eyes and saw another room, another morning. Not the cold grey of the cemetery, but the warm light of their own drawing room months ago, before everything broke. He had been sitting at his desk, papers in front of him, letters bearing seals, names she recognized, names she did not. "Louis," she had said, standing by the window. "They looked at me as if I were a child." "You worry too much about looks," he had answered, not unkindly, his eyes still on the paper. "You know how people are at court. They glance at everything." "It was not a glance," she insisted. "It was a weighing. They speak of you when you are not there." "They always speak of me when I am not there," he replied. "I would be concerned if they did not." She had crossed the room then and stood by his desk. "Listen to me," she said quietly. "They ask strange questions about your decisions, about the tenants, about the way you manage your lands. They speak as if you were careless." He had looked up at that, a faint line forming between his brows. "Who speaks?" he asked. "Madame de Vernel, for one," she said. "And the Marquis, and—" she hesitated. "And your friend." He had understood at once who she meant. The man who came often, the man who smiled easily, who praised Louis's judgment in public, and then offered gentle corrections in private. "You misheard," Louis had said. "He has known me since we were boys. He would not speak against me." "He does not speak against you," she answered. "Not directly. He suggests, he wonders. He says perhaps you are too trusting, that you need guidance." Louis had smiled, relaxing a little. "Is that all?" he said. "He has told me the same, and he is not wrong. I am not always clever in those games." "You are honest," she had said. "They do not know what to do with an honest man." He had reached for her hand then, squeezed it and let it go. "You are kind to worry for me," he said, "but do not let their talk trouble you too much. I know where I stand." "I am not sure that you do," she had murmured, but he was already back with his letters. The carriage jolted over a stone, pulling her back to the present. She opened her eyes. The grey fields outside were giving way to the scattered houses of the poorer quarter. Laundry hung from windows. A boy chased a dog down the street. The ordinary life of people who had never set foot in a salon moved on, unaware of graves with carved names or of conspiracies whispered over porcelain cups. The carriage stopped in front of a narrow house with peeling paint. The driver hopped down and opened the door. "Here we are, madam," he said. She handed him a small coin. "Thank you," she said. "I may need you again another day." He nodded. "I pass this way often. Ask for René." "I will," she said, though she did not know if she would dare. She slipped into the house and climbed the narrow stairs to the second floor. Her key scraped in the lock. The door opened onto the small room that had become her world. A low bed, a worn chair, a small table, a chest in the corner with the few clothes she owned now. Nothing to suggest that the woman who lived here had ever worn silk or sat at the head of a long table. "Is that you?" called a voice from the next room. "Yes," Elise answered. An older woman appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on her apron. Her hair was mostly grey now, but her eyes were the same as they had been when she had first served Elise as a girl. "There you are," the woman said. "You have been longer than usual." "I went earlier than usual," Elise replied. "And I stayed." The woman's gaze softened. "You saw him," she said. "Yes." Was he? He was, Elise said. More than I can bear to tell you all at once. The woman opened her arms. Come here, child. I am not a child, Elise murmured, but she went. The embrace was brief but firm. It steadied her. Sit, the woman said then. You look as if the ground has been taken away from under your feet. I will make tea. I cannot drink anything, Elise said. My stomach is in knots. You will drink, the woman replied, in the tone that had once made younger maids jump. Sit. Elise sat. The kettle hissed on the small stove. The room smelled faintly of dried herbs, ordinary things, safe things. You knew he went there, Elise said quietly, but you did not tell me how he spoke. I did not hear his words, the woman replied as she poured water into 2 cups. Only that he went. Every morning, almost. He speaks to the stone, Elise said, as if he spoke to me. He told me of his dreams, of his fears, of the way they pressure him to remarry. The woman set a cup in front of her. And what did you expect? She asked. That he would visit once and then forget. I hoped he would learn to bear it, Elise said, for his own sake, not to forget me. Only to stop tearing his heart out every day. The woman sat opposite her. When you chose to disappear, she said, did you imagine how he would look at that stone? No, Elise admitted. I imagined him angry. Wounded, yes, but angry enough to live. To say, if the world has taken her from me, I will make it pay attention to me instead. I did not imagine him broken. You do not know him as well as you think, the woman said gently. I know him as his wife, Elise said, or I thought I did. Sometimes, the woman replied, a man only shows certain parts when he is alone. You could not see him alone when he believed you had gone. Elise picked up the cup without noticing, and then set it down again without tasting. I left something, she said. The woman's eyes sharpened. What did you leave? A pressed flower, Elise answered, and a ribbon. I tied it in the old way. The woman stared at her. You did what? She asked. It was foolish, Elise said quickly. I did not mean to. It was as if my hands moved on their own. Only when he saw it did I understand what I had done. Did he recognize it? The woman asked. Yes, Elise whispered. Of course he did. He held it as if it were a message. The woman groaned softly and rubbed her forehead. You promised the doctor, she reminded her. You promised me, no signs, no letters, no trace. I know, Elise said. I know. You need not scold me. My own conscience has done nothing else since I left the grave. The older woman sighed. It is not scolding, she said. It is fear. If he begins to suspect, others may suspect with him. They will think him mad before they think me alive, Elise answered bitterly. That is what your world does to women and to men who grieve too long. It is still dangerous, the woman insisted. A knock on the door cut off further words. They both froze. Who is it? The woman called, her voice sharp. It is I, replied a man's voice. Do not be alarmed. I am alone. The tension eased a little. The woman rose and opened the door. The physician stood there, cloak damp from the mist, hat in hand. Doctor, Elise said, standing up. He bowed his head to her. Forgive the intrusion, madame, he said. I came as soon as I could. I have news. Come in, she said, please. He entered and closed the door behind him, glancing toward the small window as if to make sure no one watched from the street. You have been out this morning, he said to Elise. Your cloak is still damp. Yes, she admitted. He looked at her closely. You went to the cemetery, he said. It was not a question. Yes, she said again. He sighed. I cannot say I am surprised, he said. Only that it took you this long. I saw him, she said. He spoke to the stone. It is worse than I imagined. I know, the doctor replied quietly. I have seen him arrive at the church gate from a distance. You did not tell me, she said. What would it have given you to know, he asked. Only more nights without sleep. She had no answer. You said you had news, she said instead. Is it about him? In part, he replied. May I sit? She nodded and gestured to the other chair. The older woman hovered near the stove, listening. The doctor sat and folded his hands. You asked me last time, he began, whether the talk in the salons had calmed now that you have been laid to rest. I remember, Elise said. I regret to say it has not, he continued. In fact, Certain conversations have grown more pointed. The same people who once questioned your conduct now speak of the Count's judgment. His judgment? She repeated. Yes, the doctor said. They say grief has affected him, that he is distracted, that he hesitates in decisions he once took with ease. He has cause to hesitate, she said. The ground shifts under all our feet. They do not mean the times, the doctor replied. They mean his mind. She went still. They speak of him as if he were unsound, she asked. In measured terms, the doctor said. No one uses harsh words. They only hint. They raise delicate questions. They speak of their concern for him. They ask whether someone ought to relieve him of certain responsibilities until he has recovered from his loss. Relieve him? She said slowly. Relieve him how? By advising him, the doctor said. By taking certain matters into other hands for a while. By guiding him the way one guides a patient who has suffered a shock. And who offers this guidance? She asked. The doctor hesitated. The same man who suggested your removal, he said at last. He presents himself as the most loyal of friends. He speaks with sorrow of what you have suffered. He says Louis is too noble to see how tired he is. The older woman snorted softly. He is a snake, she muttered. Do they listen to him? Elise asked. Yes, the doctor said. He has charm. He has the right connections. He speaks with apparent reluctance, as if he wishes he could stay silent. People trust the man who pretends he does not wish to influence them. He did the same with me, Elise said slowly. The doctor looked at her. What do you mean? He asked. She rubbed her hands together as if she could scrub away the memory. Do you remember the evening at Madame de Vernel's? She said. The last one I attended before I fell ill. Yes, he said. You asked me there to speak with you in private later. I had heard things, she said. I heard him say to Madame de Vernel that I did not understand how serious matters were, that I was too inclined to speak of the tenants' needs, the unrest in the city, the gossip about noble privilege. He said it made me charming, but troublesome. The doctor frowned. You did not tell me that part, he said. I did not tell you everything, she replied. I was ashamed. Of what? The older woman asked sharply. Of being dismissed like a foolish girl, Elise said. I confronted him, you know. I spoke to him in a corner of the garden. What did he say? The doctor asked. He smiled, she said. Always that smile. He told me I was too sensitive, that I misheard, that my concern for the poor was very touching but not practical. When I did not accept that, he lowered his voice and said, Madame, if you insist on speaking of such things, people will say your mind is unsettled. The doctor's jaw clenched. He threatened you with that word, he said. Unsettled? Yes, she said. He hinted that he could protect us from such talk. Or he could not, depending on how I behaved. The older woman shook her head. And then you came to me, the doctor said quietly, and told me that if certain people wished to declare you unsound, they could isolate you. They could say your opinions were dangerous. They could call you an embarrassment to your husband. Yes, she said, and you said, I said, he interrupted, that I would not allow them to do that if I could help it. I said we must think of another way. He looked troubled now, as if the memory weighed on him. I proposed the idea that you might disappear, he said. I did not think then how deeply it would cut. You saved me, she said. Do not torment yourself. I gave your enemies exactly what they wanted, he replied. You were out of the way. They could move around Louis more freely. I hoped your absence would remove their pretext. I did not imagine they would find another. You imagined they would be satisfied, she said. You are more innocent than you look, Doctor. He smiled briefly without humor. Perhaps, he said. Elise leaned forward. What do they wish now? She asked. If they speak of relieving him, what is their aim? To place more decisions in other hands, the doctor said. To have papers signed with his name that are not fully his. To have his estate managed in ways he does not entirely understand. Little by little, his authority would become ceremonial. And they will say they do it out of kindness, the older woman muttered. Yes, the doctor agreed, out of kindness for the grieving widower who cannot be expected to bear so much alone. Elise's hands tightened on the edge of the table. So my disappearance changed nothing, she said. They planned to use me to harm him, and when I was gone they simply found another route. It changed something, the doctor said gently. They could not parade you as an example of instability. They could not lock you away and use your name as a warning. That counts. But it did not protect him, she said. Not truly. The room fell quiet. The kettle whistled faintly again as the water cooled. Outside, a cart rattled over the stones. At last, the older woman spoke. "Child," she said, "whatever is happening in those salons, what can you do from here? You are one woman in a borrowed room." Elise looked at her. "I can do nothing from here," she said. "That is the point. I am like a person watching a house burn from across a river, unable to cross." The doctor shifted in his chair. "There is a risk you must consider," he said. "If Louis begins to suspect that your death was not as it seemed, he may come to me. He may question. If he learns you are alive, he will not keep that knowledge to himself. He will want you back in his house. That will place you directly in the path of those who wished you gone." "I understand," she said. "Do you?" he asked. "If they once spoke of declaring you unsound, they might find new ways to isolate you. And Louis with you." She thought of Louis kneeling by the grave, of his voice breaking as he asked questions to a stone. "I heard him today," she said. "He has already been isolated, not in a room with locked doors, but in his heart. They use his grief to say he cannot think clearly. They put themselves between him and his own decisions." "Then you think your presence would improve matters?" the doctor asked. "I do not know," she said honestly. "Perhaps it would make everything worse. Perhaps they would say his mind has broken entirely if he insisted his dead wife stands beside him at dinner." The older woman shivered. "Do not speak like that," she murmured. "But I know this," Elise went on. "If I do nothing, they will go on tightening their net around him. They will smile and offer help until he has none of his own power left. I cannot endure that thought." The doctor looked down at his hands. "I fear for you," he said. "I fear for him, and I fear that whatever we choose, someone will pay a price." "We have already paid," she replied quietly. "Both of us." She rose and went to the small window. The glass was wavy, distorting the street below. "When I decided to disappear," she said, "I thought I was saving him. I thought, they will have no weapon to use against him if I am gone. It seems I have only made him easier to corner." "No one can predict everything," the doctor said. "We did what we could with what we knew." "It is not enough," she said. She turned back to them. "You said they speak now of his judgment," she said to the doctor. "If they succeed in convincing others that he is not capable, what happens?" "He will be gently set aside," the doctor said. "Others will manage his affairs. His name will remain. His authority will not." "And who will manage?" she asked, though she already knew. The doctor did not answer at once. "You know," he said finally. She nodded. "The friend," she said, "the one who smiled at me in gardens and called me sensitive. He will stand at Louis's elbow, pen in hand, papers ready." "Yes," the doctor said. The older woman made a disgusted sound. "He cannot bear to see anyone stand above him," she said. "He dresses his envy in concern." Silence fell again. The doctor stood. "I must return," he said. "If I stay away from my practice too long, people will ask questions. I came to warn you, not to press you into any path." "You have done what you came to do," Elise said. "Thank you." He took his hat. "If you decide to leave the city," he said softly, "tell me. I can help you find a place where no one knows your name." She met his eyes. "And if I decide to stay?" she asked. "Then I hope," he replied, "that you will be very careful." He bowed and left. The door closed. The room seemed smaller. The older woman came to her side. "You are turning something over in your mind," she said. "Yes," Elise said. "Say it aloud," the woman urged. "Sometimes that shows you how foolish it is." Elise gave a weak laugh. "I do not think it will look less foolish in words," she said, "but I will say it." She took a breath. "I cannot stay away from him," she said simply, "not only because I miss him, because he is in danger and does not know it. I thought my absence would protect him. It has left him alone in a room full of smiling enemies." "He is not entirely alone," the woman said. "He has servants who are loyal. He has the doctor. He has no one at his table who will look at him and say, 'Do you see what they are doing?'" Elise replied. "He has no one who can say it without being dismissed as jealous or ignorant. He had that once. He had me. Now he speaks to a stone." The older woman sighed. "What will you do?" she asked. "I do not know yet," Elise said. "But I know this. I cannot let him be quietly pushed aside while I hide in this room. I thought I had buried myself for his sake. Instead, I have buried myself alive and left him to suffocate in plain sight." She looked again at the little space that had been her refuge. The bed, the chair, the chest. "It felt safe here," she said. "But safety that costs him everything is not safety I can accept." The older woman put a hand on her arm. "Be certain," she said softly. "If you step out of the grave they built for you, they will try to push you into another." "I know," Elise said, "but if I stay inside it, they will bury him there too." She straightened, her voice steadier now. "Whatever I decide," she said, "I must see him again. Not from behind a tree, not as a shadow. I must see his face and hear his voice when he is not speaking to stone, even if it is only once, even if it means everything I have done until now will be undone." The next morning, Louis sat at his desk with an open ledger and saw none of the numbers. The ribbon lay beside his inkstand. He had smoothed it out carefully the night before, placed the pressed flower in a small box, and told himself he would think about it in the morning with a clear head. Morning had come. His head was no clearer. His steward stood by the door, holding a list. "About the tenant dispute, my lord," the steward said. "If we do not answer this week, they will grow anxious." "Yes," Louis said. He did not look up. "The letter from the intendant also requires—" "Yes," Louis repeated. His eyes stayed on the ribbon. The steward shifted his weight. "Shall I come back later, my lord?" he asked. Louis blinked and forced his gaze away. "No," he said. "I am listening. Forgive me, I did not sleep well." The man relaxed a little and began repeating his points. Louis tried to follow, but every time he glanced down, the knot pulled at him. 2 loops, 1 twist, the tiny fold at the end. He had untied it and tied it again in the same way, just to be sure his memory did not deceive him. When the steward left, Louis picked up the ribbon again. "You have lost your senses," he murmured to himself. People do not come back from the dead because a man cannot let go. Still, his fingers traced the faint crease that formed their private sign. He could hear her voice from years ago. "You see," she had said, showing him a letter tied just like this. "Now if this reaches you, you will know at once that it is special." "And if someone else sees it?" he had asked. "They will think it is nothing," she had answered. "That is what makes it ours." He set his jaw. He could not take the ribbon back to the cemetery and pretend it had never been there. He could not throw it in the fire. Both acts felt like betrayals, one of reason, the other of memory. He slid the ribbon and flower back into the small box and closed the lid. Then he rose and called for his coat. "Tell them to saddle my horse," he said to the footman. "I am going into the city." The footman bowed and hurried away. In the courtyard, as Louis crossed to the waiting horse, a familiar voice called to him. "Leaving so early, Louis?" He turned. The man approaching wore an elegant coat, his expression open and concerned. His dark hair was tied neatly, his step unhurried. To any observer, he was the very image of a trusted friend. "Good morning," Louis said. "I did not know you were here." "I arrived late last night," the man said. "Your steward found me a room. I thought I would surprise you at breakfast, but it seems you are running away from me." He smiled. Louis forced a small smile in return. "I have an errand in the city," he said. "I will return by evening." "An errand you cannot entrust to a servant?" his friend asked lightly. "Some questions I prefer to ask myself," Louis replied. The man studied him a moment. "You have been pale lately," he said. "The housekeeper tells me you sleep poorly." "I did not know you spoke so much with the housekeeper," Louis said. Someone else might have taken the remark as a jest. His friend took it as it was meant, a gentle reproach. "I make it my business to know how you are," he said. "You have been like a brother to me. Forgive me if my concern takes many forms." "I do not doubt your concern," Louis answered. "Only your timing." The man laughed softly. "Touché," he said. "Go then, but do not stay away too long. Your affairs need you here." "They have me here most days," Louis said. "One day will not break them." His friend's gaze flicked briefly to the box Louis had tucked inside his coat, as if he could see through fabric. Then he looked away again. "Very well," he said. "We will talk when you return. There are matters I wish to discuss, opportunities, and some gossip you should hear." "I look forward to it," Louis said. He did not. He mounted and rode out. The road to the city blurred past. He barely noticed the fields, the scattered huts, the wagon he passed with a tired man and a pile of firewood. His thoughts were ahead of him, in a narrow street where a certain physician kept his discreet practice. When he reached the city, he dismounted at the corner and gave the reins to a boy. "Walk him," he said, handing over a coin. "Do not let anyone touch his saddle." The boy nodded eagerly. Louis pulled his coat close and walked the rest of the way on foot, not wishing to draw too much attention, with a noble horse in front of the doctor's door. The bell above the door gave a faint ring as he entered. The waiting room was empty. A small fire burned in the grate. Shelves held bottles and jars with neat labels. The smell of herbs and something slightly bitter hung in the air. "Just a moment," called the doctor from the inner room. Louis stood by the window and looked out at the street. Two women walked past, one carrying a basket, the other a baby. A man swept the front of his shop. Ordinary life, as far from marble halls as one could be. The door opened. "Ah," the doctor said. "My lord. I did not expect—" He stopped when he saw Louis's face. "Is something wrong?" he asked. "Yes," Louis said, "or I have made something wrong in my own mind." "May we speak?" "Of course," the doctor replied. "Come in." He led Louis into the small consulting room and closed the door. "How may I serve you?" he asked. Louis did not sit. "I went to the cemetery yesterday," he said. The doctor's expression did not change, but his hands tightened slightly behind his back. "You go often," he said. "Is that a surprise?" "This time when I rose to leave," Louis continued, "I found a flower at the foot of her stone, pressed, tied with a ribbon." The doctor's gaze sharpened. "A flower," he repeated. "The gravekeeper might have—" "Not like that," Louis said. "This ribbon was tied in a particular way, a way my wife used. There was also a fold only she would make. It was like a signature." The doctor was quiet. Louis took the small box from his coat, opened it and held it out. "Look," he said. The doctor looked. His face stayed carefully neutral. "Recognize it?" Louis demanded. "It is a ribbon," the doctor said evenly, "and a flower." "Do not treat me as a patient," Louis snapped. "Tell me if you have seen this knot before." The doctor sighed. "Yes," he said, "I have. In your house, on certain letters she sent me when we arranged—" He stopped. "When we arranged what?" Louis asked. "Her treatment," the doctor said quickly. "She had a way with small details." "You hesitate," Louis said. "Why?" "Because you are distressed," the doctor replied. "And I am trying to be cautious." "Cautious about what?" Louis pressed. "About feeding a fantasy." The doctor met his gaze. "Do you believe your wife has returned to tie ribbons on her own grave?" he asked quietly. Louis's jaw tightened. "I believe," he said, "that someone who knew her well enough to mimic her hand has done so. I would know who. It could be a servant who remembers her habits," the doctor suggested, "or someone from your household." "No servant goes to that grave without my knowledge," Louis said. "They would not dare, and none of them knew the fold." He closed the box. "You know something," he said, "or you suspect something. I can hear it in your voice." The doctor shook his head. "I know this," he said. "Grief makes patterns where there are none. It takes a familiar knot and turns it into a message. You are not the first man to see signs where his heart longs to see them. That is why I am careful." Louis's shoulders stiffened. "You think I am losing my reason," he said. "I think you are in pain," the doctor answered. "I do not blame you for that." Louis walked to the other side of the room and back. "When she fell ill," he said, "it was sudden. One day she was at supper, the next she was in bed. Then everything happened quickly. You said it was a fever, an exhaustion, but she had never been ill like that before." "It happens," the doctor said. "Bodies fail." "And her burial," Louis went on. "You urged hastiness. You said the weather, the risk of contagion." "Yes," the doctor said. "I did." "Did I ever see her after?" Louis asked. The doctor frowned. "You were distraught," he said. "We spoke of this. You chose to remember her as she was, not as illness left her." "Did I choose?" Louis asked. "Or did you choose for me?" The doctor's lips pressed together. "I will not let you turn me into an enemy," he said quietly. "I have done what I thought best." "Then tell me plainly," Louis said. "Do you know of any reason why I should doubt that my wife lies in that grave?" The doctor looked away for a moment, as if the wall could help him. He thought of Elise, of her pale face when she begged him to protect Louis, of the signatures on the false papers, of the priest who had agreed to look solemn and say the right words over an empty coffin. He thought of promises. "I know," he said slowly, "that her death came as a shock to you. I know that in such cases the mind sometimes reaches for other explanations." "That is not an answer," Louis said. "It is the only one I can give you without breaking several vows at once," the doctor replied. Louis stared at him. "What vows?" he asked. "Professional ones," the doctor said, "and ones made to a person who trusted me. I cannot—" He stopped himself. "Who trusted you?" Louis demanded. "I cannot say more," the doctor said firmly. "For your sake as much as anyone's." Louis's hands clenched at his sides. "My sake," he repeated. "You speak as everyone speaks now, as if I am a child who must not be upset, as if the air around me will shatter if the truth is spoken plainly." The doctor did not answer. Louis's breath came fast. "I see," he said. "I have misjudged you. That is not fair," the doctor replied. "You ask me to break confidences that, once broken, cannot be mended. If I cross that line lightly, you will not thank me later." "I will thank you now," Louis said. "That is enough." The doctor shook his head. "No," he said. "Not like this. Go home, my lord. Rest. Do not chase shadows." Louis opened the door without another word. "Thank you for your time," he said stiffly. "Louis," the doctor began. But the door had already closed. Outside, the street felt narrower than before. The sky seemed lower. Louis stood still for a moment, the box heavy in his pocket. If the doctor would not answer him, he would look elsewhere. He walked without thinking to the church near the cemetery. The gravekeeper was sweeping the steps when he arrived. "Good day, my lord," the man said, surprised. "You are early." "I was in the city," Louis said. "I wish to ask you a question." The man wiped his hands on his coat. "Of course," he said. "Anything. Have you seen anyone at my wife's grave besides me?" Louis asked. The man shifted uncomfortably. "A few people come now and then," he said. "Ladies who knew her, I think. They leave flowers sometimes." "What ladies?" Louis asked. "I do not know their names, my lord," the man answered. "They come in carriages. They wear veils. They do not wish to be seen." "And do any of them carry ribbons?" Louis pressed. The man blinked. "Ribbons," he said. "I see many things. I do not notice every tie." "You noticed this one," Louis said, taking out the box. He opened it and showed the man the ribbon and flower. The gravekeeper leaned closer. "I did not place that," he said. "If I had seen it fall, I would have put it back. It is too fine for my pocket." "Do you recognize the knot?" Louis asked. The man laughed awkwardly. "My lord, I tie my boots," he said. "Nothing more from the world of knots." Louis shut the box again. "If you see anyone at that grave," he said, "tell me at once. Send word to the house." The man swallowed. "At once, my lord," he said. Louis turned and walked away, aware of the man's eyes on his back. The day stretched into afternoon. He went home, he rode. He tried to busy himself with accounts. Every attempt failed. By evening, his friend found him in the library. "There you are," the man said. "You return and hide among books. I am almost offended." "I needed quiet," Louis said. "You always need quiet," his friend replied lightly. "It is your greatest fault. You give the world too much privacy." He poured himself a glass of wine and sat. "So," he said, "did your errand go well?" "I am not sure," Louis replied. His friend watched him over the rim of the glass. "You are troubled," he said. "More than usual." "Do you measure my troubles?" Louis asked. "When they concern you, yes," the man said. "I hear things, you know. People tell me what they say of you in town." "What do they say?" Louis asked. "They say you have become withdrawn," his friend replied carefully. "That grief has made you hesitant, that you delay decisions." "I try to consider them," Louis said. "They are not so generous," the man went on. "They worry that you cannot manage everything alone. They say perhaps you should let others relieve you of certain burdens." "And by others, they mean you," Louis said, not smiling. His friend spread his hands. "I try not to encourage such talk," he said. "I tell them you are capable, but I cannot stop people from worrying." "You do more than not discourage it," Louis said. "You shape it, gently, with concern. You always have." The man's eyes cooled slightly. "I have always tried to protect you," he said. "Even from yourself. Forgive me if I have been clumsy." Louis looked at him. "Did you know," he asked, that my wife once told me you spoke of her mind as unsettled. His friend blinked. She misunderstood me, he said. I told her others might say such things. I wished to warn her. Louis did not respond. His friend leaned forward. Louis, he said quietly, you are tired. You see enemies where there are none. If anyone in this house is on your side, it is I. I know many people say so, Louis said. His friend sat back. You are not yourself, he said. I hear that often, Louis replied. His friend rose. I will leave you for tonight, he said. We can talk when your mood is lighter. There are important matters to discuss, but not while you are like this. He left. Louis remained alone. The words unsettled and not yourself turned in his mind. He opened the box again and looked at the ribbon. For you were never afraid to say what you saw, he murmured to the empty room. What would you say now? He closed the box, took his cloak, and stepped out into the night. He did not tell anyone where he was going. He did not fully know himself, only that his blood felt too hot for these walls, only that somewhere in the city threads were being pulled that tied directly to his name. He walked to the stables and chose a plain horse, not his usual one. He saddled it himself. The stable boy peered at him from a distance but did not dare approach. The ride to the city felt different in the dark. Lanterns glowed in windows. Voices drifted from taverns. A group of men talked loudly on a corner. He avoided them. When he reached the town, he did not go straight to the doctor this time. He rode down narrower streets, following no plan, letting his instinct guide him. He passed the church. Its windows were dark. He turned onto a lane he knew led to cheaper lodgings. People glanced at him and then away. A nobleman on a horse drew attention even at night. He dismounted and led the horse by the reins, trying to make himself less obvious. At a small square, he tied the animal to a post and walked on alone. He had nearly convinced himself that he was walking without purpose when he saw her, a figure in a simple cloak, moving quickly along the far side of the street. The step light, but determined. The head inclined just so. He froze. It was not the cloak or the shoes, or the way the fabric fell that arrested him. It was something in the line of her shoulders, the turn of her wrist as she briefly lifted her skirt to avoid a puddle. His heart pounded. The figure turned into a narrower side street. Louis followed. He told himself it was madness, that he was chasing a shadow, that if he reached the end of the street, he would find a stranger with no resemblance to his wife, beyond what his mind had painted onto her. Still he followed. The side street was dim, lit only by a lantern hanging above a door. The walls leaned inward slightly, making it feel like a corridor. The figure was ahead, closer now. She walked with the unconscious grace he knew too well, the one that came not from training but from a lifetime of moving through rooms watched by eyes. "Madam," he called softly. The word left his mouth before he decided to speak. The figure stiffened. She did not run. She did not keep walking. Slowly, as if turning in a dream, she turned her face toward the faint light. The hood fell back just enough for him to see her face. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. "Elise," he said. Her name came out as barely more than breath, yet the sound of it seemed to stop the air between them. She did not move toward him. She did not run. She stood very still, as if one step in any direction might shatter everything. "Louis," she answered. His hand reached for the wall beside him to steady himself. "You are dead," he said absurdly. "They buried you." I was there. I heard the prayers." "I know," she replied quietly. "I am sorry." He took a step toward her, then stopped halfway, afraid that if he touched her she would vanish. "You are here," he said. "You speak. You stand. You are you." "Yes," she said. "I am." A noise at the mouth of the street, laughter, the clatter of a cart, made her glance that way. "This is not a safe place to talk," she said. "Not for you. Come with me, please. Do not call out again." "Safe?" he repeated. "You speak of safety after you have risen from your grave." "Louis," she said softly, "if you wish to understand anything, you must come now." She turned and walked farther down the narrow street. She did not look back to see if he followed. He did. They reached a small door set between two houses. She knocked in a particular way. The door opened at once. The older woman stood there, eyes wide when she saw who stood behind Elise. "Madame," she whispered, "you did not tell me." "There was no time," Elise said. "Let us in." The woman stepped aside. Louis crossed the threshold as if he were stepping into another country. The room was small. Low ceiling, worn floorboards, the faint smell of herbs, a chair, a narrow bed, a table. It was nothing like the room she had once ruled in his house. "Here?" he asked, bewildered. "For you live here?" "For now," she said. "Sit, Louis." He remained standing. "I do not know how to address you," he said. "My wife? My ghost? My—" "Your wife," she said firmly. "Always your wife. The rest is necessity." He looked at her, his chest rising and falling quickly. "Explain," he said. "All of it. From the beginning." She swallowed. "I will try," she said. "But you must let me finish, even when you wish to speak." He gave a rough laugh. "I have been speaking to a stone for months," he said. "I can listen to you now." The older woman moved quietly to the far corner, giving them space but staying where she could hear. Elise took a breath. "Do you remember," she began, "when I told you that certain people at court spoke of you oddly, that they weighed your name like a coin in their fingers?" "Yes," he said. "I remember thinking you were anxious without cause." "You were not entirely wrong," she said. "I was anxious, but there was cause. They were looking for a way to bring you down, to make you less. You are honest, Louis. You do not play their games well. That makes you dangerous to those who live by them. And they chose you as the means," he said slowly. "Yes," she said, "because I was easier to attack. A wife can be painted any way they wish her to be. Too opinionated, too soft, too charitable, too frivolous, too severe, too much, too little." They tried several words, and then they settled on one. "Unsettled," he murmured. "Yes," she said. "The most useful word of all. It sounds sympathetic. It cloaks cruelty in concern." He sat down then, as if more of this needed a chair. "Go on," he said. "I heard them speak," she continued. "Madame de Vernel, the Marquis, and him, your friend, the one downstairs at your house now, drinking your wine, reading your letters in his mind before they reach your hands." Louis's mouth tightened. "What did he say?" he asked. "That you needed guidance," she replied. "That you were too trusting. That my presence did not help. That I filled your head with ideas about tenants and unrest. That such things were not suitable for a woman to care about. That people might say my mind was touched if I spoke too often of them." "And then?" he asked. "And then he came to me," she said, "in the garden at Madame de Vernel's. He smiled. He told me I was charming. That my concern for the poor was like a pretty lace on an otherwise proper dress. And then he said very gently that if I did not learn when to be silent, people might think I was not well." She looked at him. "Do you know how that feels?" she asked softly. "To have your mind threatened in that way? Not by a shout, but by a murmur." His hands clenched on his knees. "No," he said, "but I am beginning to imagine." "I went to the doctor," she said. "I told him what I'd heard. We both saw where it might lead. If they called me unstable, they could isolate me, send me away under the pretense of care, turn me into a cautionary tale. 'Look,' they would say, 'at the poor count with the wife who lost her wits. He must not be trusted with serious matters.' And they would speak of relieving me of certain decisions," he said bitterly, "for my own good." "Yes," she said, "using me as the excuse, using my supposed illness to bind you." He looked at her in silence. "So you decided," he said at last, "to remove yourself?" "Yes," she said. "The doctor proposed it. I chose it. I will not pretend I was dragged into it. We planned an illness. He told you enough to make it believable. He urged haste with the burial. He asked you to remember me as I had been." "And I obeyed," Louis said. "I was so proud of my self-control, of my refusal to see your body. I thought it was noble. I see now it was convenient." She flinched. "Do not blame yourself for that," she said. "We counted on your love, yes, on your wish to spare yourself one more wound, but you could not have known. You lay in an empty coffin," he said slowly, "while I stood above it and believed I had lost you." "Yes," she said, "I lay here instead, in this room. The priest spoke words over wood and air. Then they brought you home." He covered his face with his hands. "And you," he said through his fingers, "you heard nothing of my grief, nothing of my visits. You did not know I went to the grave each day." She hesitated, then told the truth. "At first, no," she said. "Only later. She She nodded toward the older woman. Brought me word she heard the kitchen talk. She saw you pass the door at dawn. She told me you went, often. And still you stayed away, he said. Yes, she replied, because I told myself it was the price. We had agreed that my absence would protect you, that the plot would collapse without its tool. I thought, he suffers now, but he will heal. He will be safe. And when did you realize I had neither healed nor become safe? He asked. She looked down. Today, she said. Yesterday, at the grave, when I heard you speak, when I heard you say you did not know how to live without my memory, when the doctor told me that they had simply changed their method, that now instead of pointing at me as the problem, they point at you. He lowered his hands. So, he said quietly, you watched me break and told yourself it was necessary. Yes, she said, and then one day I could not say it any more. He absorbed that. And the ribbon? He asked. The flower? A foolish lapse, she said. I long to leave you something. Something that said, you are not alone entirely. I did not think you would notice the knot so quickly. A faint, painful smile touched his mouth. I have spent evenings untangling your knots from letters, he said. I know each crease as if it were written on my own fingers. How could I not notice? I know, she said softly. He leaned back in the chair. You have hurt me, he said. You have hurt me more than any enemy could. She swallowed hard. I know, she repeated. And yet, he went on, I look at you, and I cannot find anger big enough to match what I feel. It is there. Do not doubt it. But it is tangled with relief and something that feels a little like gratitude. Gratitude, she whispered. You chose to vanish rather than let them destroy me loudly, he said. You stepped into your own grave so they would not push you into another. That was not done to wound me. It wounded me anyway, but that was not your aim. No, she said. My aim was to keep you standing. Instead, he replied. We have both been living in half-light. She nodded. Yes, she said. That is exactly how it feels. For a moment neither spoke. The small fire crackled faintly. The older woman moved at last. If I may, she said, this might be the moment for less pain and more planning. Louise looked at her. Madame, he began. Claire, she said. I dressed your wife on her wedding day. I have scolded your cooks. I have calmed your horses. I have earned the right to speak plainly. He almost smiled. Then speak, he said. Heaven knows we need plain words. You are both fond of noble suffering, Claire said. It has done enough damage. The men who moved against you have not stopped because she disappeared. They have grown bolder. You know that now. We cannot undo what has been done, but we can decide what story is told from this night onward. And what story is that? Louis asked. That the Count and his wife were not as blind as their enemies believed, she said. That they saw the net and slipped through it. That they will now pull it tight around the one who wove it. Louis glanced at Elise. You have spoken of their schemes, he said, but I still do not know how far they have gone, how much they have managed to steal. Elise exhaled. Claire and the doctor have brought me pieces, she said. Small things, a signature here that you did not fully read, an agreement there that you were told was temporary, advice given as if you had asked for it. Claire nodded. He has been careful, she said. He never oversteps all at once, he suggests. He drafts letters and says, sign here, Louis, it will save you trouble. He calls in your name when you are too tired to attend certain meetings. People begin to think of him as your voice. Louis's face darkened. And I let him, he said. I thought he was easing my burden. You were grieving, Elise said gently. You are allowed to accept help. The fault is his in how he used it. He looked at her. You defend me, he said. I refuse to let you carry all the blame for what others have done with your pain, she replied. He gave a small, startled laugh. You sound as you once did, he said, sharpened and kind at once. I am the same woman, she said, only more tired. He leaned forward. Tell me, he said, if we both walked into the great salon tomorrow and you stood beside me, what would happen? She considered. At first, she said, shock, maybe screams. Perhaps someone would faint, if we are fortunate. Then questions, then whispers. Then very quickly someone would say that you have lost your mind, and that you have walked out of your grave, he said. Yes, she said, those who wish you well might believe in a mistake, a misunderstanding, a miracle. Those who do not will use my reappearance to prove your instability. And yet you still came to me, he said. Yes, she said, because whatever they say of you, I need you to be in possession of the truth. We cannot fight shadows if you are blindfolded. He nodded once. Then here is my truth, he said. I do not want to live another day without you, even if the price of having you beside me is that some will call me mad. Her eyes filled. Louis, she whispered. I will not pretend this is simple, he continued. Your return will have consequences. But I choose them. Do you hear me? I choose them. I will not let you choose my losses for me again. She came closer, without realizing she had moved. Her hand fluttered toward him and then stopped. May I? She asked. He reached out and took her hand himself. You may, he said. You may, always. Her fingers closed around his. The contact was at once strange and utterly familiar. I am sorry, she said again, for deciding alone, for thinking I knew best. And I am sorry, he said, for not listening when you first tried to warn me, for dismissing your unease as anxiety, for leaving you to face their smiles without standing beside you. She shook her head. We are full of apologies, she said. We will drown in them if we are not careful. Then let us turn them into something useful, he replied. How? She asked. He thought for a moment. We cannot present you openly yet, he said. Not without giving them time to claim I have lost touch with reality. We must choose a setting where appearance matters, where witnesses are many, where the story cannot be easily twisted, and where you are not entirely in their power, Claire added. The estate, Louis said. My own house, my own hall. They will say you have filled it with actors, Elise said. We need more than a room that belongs to you. The church, he said. Or the magistrate. Somewhere that wears respectability like armor. Claire lifted her chin. The church, she said. You were married there. People remember. The priest who spoke over the empty coffin is still there, thanks to the doctor's discretion. He owes us truth. Elise nodded slowly. If we summon a small gathering, she said, under some pretense, a remembrance for me, perhaps, those who come will not suspect. And when you appear, Louis said, they will have to choose what they believe, either that you never died or that I am delusional. In the first case, our friend is exposed as a manipulator who used a false death. In the second, they must argue that the priest, the doctor, and half the town share my madness. It will not be perfect, Claire said. Some will whisper, some will doubt, but it will be enough to shake his hold. And after, Elise asked quietly. What happens to me then? Louis looked at her. You come home, he said simply. Where else? Her gaze searched his. And if they shun us? She asked. If doors close, if invitations cease? Then we will have more evenings to ourselves, he replied. We may discover it suits us better than we thought. A small, startled laugh escaped her. You would give up their acceptance so easily? She asked. I have not felt accepted by them in months, he said. Only watched, judged, weighed. The only acceptance I miss is yours. And I have it now, if you offer it. She squeezed his hand. You have always had it, she said. Even when I hid. That was the trouble. I loved you and feared for you at the same time. He rose, pulling her gently to her feet. Fear with me, then, he said. Not for me, and not alone. She stood very close now. The distance between them filled with everything unsaid for so long. I do not know how to be married from the edge of a grave, she said. Then let us step away from it, he answered quietly. Together, Claire cleared her throat with discreet firmness. I will speak to the doctor, she said. We must plan carefully. The priest must be prepared. He must choose his truth before he stands in front of everyone. And our friend? Louis asked. Claire's eyes narrowed. He will come if you invite him, she said. He would not miss a chance to display his concern. We will give him a place where his lies cannot breathe easily. Louis nodded. I will write the invitations, he said. I will call it a memorial for my wife. They will approve. They will say it is healthy for me to mark the end of mourning. And when they arrive, Elise said, they will find that mourning has not ended. It has been interrupted. He looked at her with a mixture of admiration and pain. You have become sharper in hiding, he said. Hiding takes practice, she replied. I have had months. He let go of her hand, only to reach for both of hers. Those months are over, he said. Do you hear me? Tonight, the door closes on them. Tomorrow, another opens. She breathed out slowly. Yes, she said. I hear you. He drew her gently toward the small window. Look, he said. The street is the same. The lamps are the same. But everything has changed because we have decided to change it. Outside, a woman passed with a basket. A child ran after a stray dog. A man lit a lantern, shielding the flame with his hand. It is frightening, Elise said, to step back into the world. It is frightening to remain outside it too, he replied. At least this way we walk together. She turned her head to look at him. Will you truly stand with me, she asked, if they point and whisper and doubt? Yes, he said simply. Will you trust my judgment, she continued, when I say someone's smile hides a knife? More than I have, he answered. I have learned something about your eyes. And will you let me speak, she said, even when my opinions trouble your comfort? I think, he said, that my comfort needs troubling. She smiled, a real one this time, small but steady. Then she said, I will come home. He closed his eyes briefly, as if the words were a blessing. Say it again, he murmured. I will come home, she repeated. Not as a ghost, as your wife. He opened his eyes. That, he said, is all I have wanted since the day they told me you were gone. Claire moved closer, her face softer now. You will need rest, she said to Elise. Planning will wait until morning. You look as if the earth has been shifting under your feet all night. It has, Elise said, but it is settling now. Louis hesitated. I should leave before anyone notices my absence, he said. For a little while longer, we must pretend nothing has changed. She nodded. You will come back tomorrow? She asked. Tomorrow, he said, and the next day. Until you walk through our door, and I no longer have to measure my life in visits to this room. She lifted his hand to her lips, a gesture so simple and familiar that it brought tears to both their eyes. Go then, she said softly. Before I forget, it is wise. He released her reluctantly and moved to the door. On the threshold he turned back. Elise, he said. Yes, do not disappear again, he said. If danger comes, we face it. We do not bury ourselves alive for it. Her gaze was clear. I promise, she said. No more graves for the living. He inclined his head, as if accepting a solemn vow, then stepped out into the night. The door closed. The room grew quiet. Elise stood very still, her hand pressed to the wood where his had just been on the other side. Claire came to her. Well, the older woman said, you have stepped out of your grave, child. Yes, Elise answered, and for the first time since I entered it, I feel the air in my lungs, as if it belongs to me again. On the morning of the memorial, the house felt strangely quiet. Louis stood before the mirror while his valet fastened his cuffs. The black coat was the same he had worn on the day of the funeral that had not been a funeral. It sat differently on his shoulders now. That will be all, Louis said. Yes, my lord, the valet replied, bowing himself out. Louis picked up the small box from his dressing table. The ribbon and pressed flower lay inside, unchanged. He slipped the box into his pocket and closed his hand briefly around it. A knock sounded at the door. Come in, he said. His friend entered, elegant as always, expressions softened into concern. You look solemn, the man said, but I suppose that is fitting for the day. It is a memorial, Louis replied. Solemnity is expected. His friend approached. I must say, he continued, I am glad you agreed to this. Marking the end of mourning is healthy. It will reassure everyone that you are ready to look forward. Will it? Louis asked. Yes, the man said. Grief must have its limits, even for a man as devoted as you. People have begun to worry that you live too much among shadows. Today will show them you have not lost yourself. Louis studied him. You think so? He said quietly. I am certain of it, the man replied. And if afterward you wish to discuss the future, I am ready to advise. There are alliances to consider, ways to strengthen your position. How fortunate I am, Louis said, to have such attentive guidance. The man smiled. You are fortunate to have loyal friends, he said. He adjusted his own cuff, watching himself in the mirror. I will ride with you, he added. It is proper. We will arrive together. People will see you are not alone. Louis turned away from the mirror. I am not alone, he said, and today They will see it more clearly than they expect. His friend gave him a quick, puzzled glance, then let it pass. "Shall we?" he asked. "Yes," Louis said. "Let us go." The carriage ride to the church was short. The city streets were already busy, but the carriage curtains kept them separate from the noise. They sat opposite each other, the air between them full of unspoken things. "You are quiet," his friend said. "I am thinking," Louis replied. "Of her?" the man asked gently. "Yes," Louis said. "Of her. Of what she would say today." "I imagine she would be pleased you are honoring her," the man said, "and that you are ready to step into new responsibilities." Louis almost smiled. "You imagine many things," he said. The carriage slowed, then stopped. "Ah," the man said. "We have arrived." The church doors stood open. Candles glowed inside. A modest crowd had gathered. Relatives, a few local nobles, some acquaintances, who had called on him during the months of mourning. They whispered as he passed, their expressions soft with pity and curiosity. The priest waited near the altar, his hands clasped, eyes uneasy. The doctor stood beside the front pew, face grave. Claire sat 2 rows back, dressed plainly, her gaze sharp and steady. Louis walked up the aisle, his friend at his side. They took their places in the front row. The murmurs died as the priest raised his hand. "We are gathered," the priest said, "to honor the memory of Madame la Comtesse Élise de Beaumont, whose loss has weighed heavily on this house and on all those who knew her." Louis listened, his heart pounding steadily, not with grief now, but with anticipation. The priest spoke of sorrow and consolation, of the passage of time. His words stumbled once or twice, as if they were not entirely his own. When the prayers ended, he looked at Louis. "Would you care to speak, my son?" he asked. "Yes," Louis said. He rose and turned to face the small assembly. Most eyes were kind, a few were calculating. His friend's gaze was full of calm support. "I asked you here today," Louis began, "because I have been told that grief must have a shape, a beginning and an end, that it is proper to mark the closing of a year to acknowledge that life continues." He paused. "Life does continue," he said, "but not always in the way we expect. Grief has not followed the rules I was given. It has not been neat. It has not been obedient. It has shaken more than my heart. It has shaken my understanding of what is true." Several faces shifted uneasily. The Marquis, sitting near the middle, whispered something to Madame de Vernel. She inclined her head, her expression attentive. Louis went on. "I have been urged," he said, "to put certain feelings aside, to think of my name, my position, my duties. I have been told very gently that perhaps I am not quite myself, that perhaps others ought to help carry my responsibilities until I am more balanced." His eyes moved to his friend. "Those words have come from people who call themselves my friends," he said. "Men who say they know what is best for me." His friend raised his brows faintly, as if puzzled but not alarmed. "I have listened to them," Louis said. "I have let them speak in my name. I have signed papers I did not fully read. I have let their concern guide my steps. I believed I was too tired, too broken to stand alone." He looked up at the simple cross above the altar. "I was wrong," he said. A ripple ran through the pews. The doctor's gaze did not waver. "Before I speak further," Louis said, "I will ask someone else to speak, someone who knows more than any of you about those days you call mine and hers." He turned to the doctor. "Doctor," he said, "would you tell them, please, what you and I have not spoken of in public until now?" The doctor drew a breath and stepped forward. "My lords, ladies," he said, "I attended Madame de Beaumont during her illness. I signed the papers of her death. I stood with the priest as we commended her soul. Until now I have accepted that silence was a form of loyalty. Today I must speak differently." The priest shifted, his hands tightening in front of him. "When Madame de Beaumont came to me before her illness," the doctor continued, "she spoke of strange pressures, of certain people hinting that her concern for matters outside the drawing room made her unsuitable, that her mind might be questioned if she did not conform." Madame de Vernel's fan stilled. "I saw the danger in that," the doctor said. "I feared they would use her reputation against her husband, that they would say, 'Look, his wife is unsound. He must not be trusted.' Together we devised a desperate plan, one that I believed would protect them both." His voice grew quieter. But the church was silent now. "We arranged a false illness," he said. "We arranged a death. We arranged a coffin that held no body. I did what I thought would keep her from being locked away and used as a weapon." Gasps rose around the room. The Marquis half stood, then sat again. Louis's friend stared at the doctor, his expression suddenly still. "This is outrageous," Madame de Vernel began. "Is it true?" asked the Marquis sharply. "Father." All eyes turned to the priest. He looked down at his hands, then up at Louis, then at the congregation. "I feared," he said slowly, "that if I refused, I would anger those who moved behind the scenes. I told myself I was protecting the living. I told myself God sees the heart more than the coffin. I agreed to speak words over an empty box." "So you all lied," someone murmured. "Not all," Louis said calmly. "Two men lied to protect a woman they believed in and a man they feared for. They did not foresee that others would seize the silence and twist it for their own gain." His friend found his voice. "Louis," he said, managing a strained smile, "you have suffered greatly. I understand the need to find explanations. But this—" Louis lifted a hand. "One more voice must be heard," he said. "Without it, this story is incomplete." He looked toward the side door near the choir. "Madame la Comtesse," he said clearly, "if you would join us." The door opened. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Elise stepped through. She wore no jewels. Her dress was plain but well cut, her hair simply arranged. There was no attempt at drama in her appearance, only quiet certainty. The sound in the church was not quite a scream and not quite a prayer. It was a collective intake of breath that hung in the air. Madame de Vernel's fan fell from her hand. The Marquis clutched the back of the pew. Someone crossed themselves hurriedly. Louis's friend went very pale. "This is indecent," he said hoarsely. "Who is this woman? What game is this?" Elise walked up the aisle. As she passed each row, faces tilted toward her, eyes wide, mouths parted. Some stared as if seeing a ghost. Others squinted, searching for flaws in the likeness. She stopped beside Louis. He looked at her as if it cost him nothing, as if seeing his dead wife walk again were the most natural thing. "This is no game," Louis said. "You all knew her. I present to you my wife, Elise de Beaumont. Very much alive." The silence deepened. Elise turned to face them. "I am sorry," she said, "for the shock, for the deceit, for leaving you all to draw your own conclusions from an empty grave." Her voice was calm, clear. "I did not die," she said. "I disappeared. I did so because I was told that my presence would be used to call my husband's judgment into question, that my opinions, my concerns, my very way of seeing the world would be called illness. I was told they could isolate me, call me unfit, and then say the same of him." She did not look at any one person more than another, but her words moved through the crowd like a thin blade. "I chose to vanish," she continued, "with the help of the doctor and the priest. I believed that if I removed myself, they would lose their lever, that Louis would be safer without me." Her eyes found Louis's friend now. "I was wrong," she said. "They did not lose their lever. They only changed it. They began to speak of his grief instead of my mind. They called him hesitant, uncertain, unwell." The man's jaw tightened. "This is slander," he said sharply. "You speak of they as if you have proof." "I have memory," she replied. "I have heard the conversations. I have heard you say with great sorrow that Louis is too burdened to manage alone, that he needs guidance, that perhaps others should relieve him." He smiled thinly. "I have only ever wished to protect him," he said, "as any friend would. I did not weave tales of madness and empty coffins." Louis stepped forward. "Did you not?" he asked quietly. "You spoke to my wife in a garden and warned her that people might think her unstable if she spoke too freely of her concerns. You spoke to others and suggested that grief made me unfit for certain choices. You presented yourself as the one who could shield us from gossip." "I merely reported what others said," the man replied. "It is cruel to twist my words this way. Look at yourselves. You stage a spectacle in a church, parade a woman who resembles your late wife, accuse a loyal man of plotting. Who here feels unstable now?" Several people shifted away from him slightly, as if his agitation made the space around him uncomfortable. The doctor spoke again. "You did not merely repeat words," he said. "You arranged meetings in which you spoke of the Count's supposed fragility. You sought my agreement. You asked if his grief affected his mind. You encouraged me to treat him as someone not fully capable. Because I worried for him, the man snapped. You, of all people, should encourage concern for mental health. You worried for what you could gain, Claire said sharply from her pew. You have always feared being second. You saw an opening and slid into it. He turned on her. Who listens to a servant in such matters? He scoffed. I listened, Elise said, and I see now that I should have made others listen earlier. Murmurs rose. Snatches of phrases floated. Empty coffin. Alive all this time. Doctor knew. Priest agreed. Friend gained power. The Marquis stood. I may not approve of every choice made here, he said slowly, but I know a genuine woman when I see one. That is Madame de Beaumont. If she says she fled for fear of being declared insane, I believe her. And I recall who in my hearing first suggested such words. Madame de Vernel nodded. As do I, she said. We have all heard certain suggestions. Framed as concern, I begin to think we have been led. Louis's friend spread his hands. This is madness, he said. You are all eager to be deceived. You accept the word of a woman who admits she lied about her own death. I lied to escape a trap, Elise said. You lied to build one. He looked around and saw for the first time that the expressions turned toward him were no longer trusting. Doubt had crept in. Distance. Calculation of another sort. You will regret this, he said quietly. All of you. Louis met his gaze. I regret only that I did not see you sooner, he replied. You will not speak in my name again. Not in council. Not in private. Not in letters. Those that have been sent will be reviewed. Those that have been signed will be examined. Whatever was done under the cover of my grief will be brought into the light. And if others refuse to work with you without my assistance, the man asked. Then they refuse, Louis said. I would rather stand with fewer allies than lean on one false friend. No one spoke in the man's defense. Slowly, stiffly, he bowed. Very well, he said. If I am no longer welcome as a friend, I will not stay as an enemy. I wish you all the joy of your miracle. His tone made the word an insult, but it had no weight. He turned and walked down the aisle. No one stopped him. No one reached out. Faces turned away slightly as he passed, as if his presence carried a draught. When the door closed behind him, the church felt lighter. Louis exhaled. My friends, he said to the gathered people, I have no wish to drag anyone through public examinations. I have no desire for scandal, but I cannot and will not live under a lie any longer. My wife is alive. Our marriage remains. My judgment is my own. The Marquis inclined his head. I may not understand every choice you made, he said, but I respect that you have chosen to stand together rather than apart. That at least is something I can admire. Madame de Vernel gave a small, strained laugh. I must rewrite several stories I have told at supper, she said, but I prefer a living woman with a complicated past to a dead one used as a moral lesson. Others murmured agreement or at least acquiescence. The priest stepped forward. Whatever has been done, he said, I will do what I can to mend it. I will speak to those who ask. I will say that Madame de Beaumont lives, that I misled you once out of fear, and will not do so again. Thank you, Father, Louis said. Slowly the assembly began to disperse. Some came forward to greet Elise with hesitant warmth, to touch her hand as if to assure themselves she was real. Others slipped out quickly, eager to be the first to carry the news, their minds already forming the version of the tale they would tell. At last, the church emptied. Only Louis, Elise, the priest, the doctor, and Claire remained near the altar. The priest looked at the couple with a strange mix of guilt and hope. There is one thing I can do, he said softly. If you wish it. Not in grand ceremony, but in a quiet moment like this. What is that? Elise asked. When I stood before a coffin without your body, the priest said, I spoke of endings, of farewells. Perhaps it is fitting that I now speak of beginnings, with you both present. Louis and Elise exchanged a glance. A blessing? Louis asked. A renewal, the priest said. You were married here. Let the same walls hear the promise again. Not for others this time, for yourselves. The idea settled over them like warm air after a long winter. Yes, Elise said softly. I would like that. Louis smiled, not widely, but with a depth that reached his eyes. So would I, he said. They stepped before the altar. Claire and the doctor stood back, respectful witnesses. The priest lifted his hands. You came here once, he said, young and hopeful, not knowing the path ahead. You return now, older in sorrow and in courage. Do you still choose each other? He looked at Louis. Do you, Louis de Beaumont, choose this woman, not as an ornament or a duty, but as a partner in truth? Will you listen when she warns you, trust her eyes when they see danger, and share your burdens instead of carrying them alone until they break you? I will, Louis said. He turned to Elise. And do you, Elise de Beaumont, the priest continued, choose this man not as a figure to protect from afar, but as someone to stand beside in light and in trouble. Will you speak honestly when you are afraid? Trust that he can bear the truth and walk with him rather than running into the shadows to spare him pain? I will, she said. The priest smiled faintly. Then I bless this union again, he said, not because it was ever broken, but because you have walked through something like death and come out still holding one another's hands. May you live now not as if every day could be your last, but as if every day is worth being fully alive in. He lowered his hands. It is done, he said simply. Louis turned to Elise. They say we must mark the end of mourning, he murmured. And what do you say? She asked. He reached for her, careful, almost reverent, and let his forehead rest lightly against hers. I say we mark the beginning of living, he replied. Her breath caught. That is a good beginning, she whispered. Later that afternoon, they walked together to the cemetery. No carriage, no entourage, only the two of them, cloaks brushing, footsteps matching. The gravekeeper saw them coming and froze, broom in hand. My lord, he stammered. My lady, I thought... You thought correctly, Louis said gently. You saw only what others told you to see. Do not fear. We have not come to trouble you. Elise stepped toward the stone that bore her name. Her own dates stared back at her, carved in neat lines. A life given boundaries that were not real. It feels strange, she said, to see my life summed up so falsely. Louis stood beside her. What shall we do with it? He asked. Leave it? Erase it? Turn it into something else? She considered. Erase the dates, she said. Leave the name. Not as a grave. As a marker. A marker of what? He asked. Of the day I chose to bury myself, she replied quietly. And of the day I stepped out again. He nodded. Can you do that? He asked the gravekeeper. The man swallowed. If the stonecutter is willing, he said, it can be changed. Do it, Louis said. I will pay whatever is needed. And tell him to add a single word beneath the name. What word? Elise asked. Alive, Louis said. She laughed softly. That will cause talk, she said. There is talk already, he replied. Let this at least be true. He took the small box from his pocket, opened it, and showed her the pressed flower and ribbon. You kept it, she said. Of course, he answered. It woke me up. He placed the flower gently at the base of the stone, then put the ribbon into her hand. You may tie it where you like now, he said. No more hiding. She looked at the ribbon, then looped it around her own wrist, tying it with the familiar twist and fold. There, she said, if you lose me again, you will know whom to look for. I do not intend to lose you, he replied. They stood for a moment in silence, not in mourning now, but in something like gratitude. You know, she said at last, when I chose to vanish, I thought I was being brave. I see now that I was afraid. Afraid that if you truly knew the danger, you would fall. Afraid that if we stood together, we would be crushed. So I ran into the dark and told myself it was sacrifice. You were brave, he said, and afraid. Both can be true. I was cowardly and proud at once. I refused to see what you tried to show me. I let others act in my name because it was easier than facing how much I had lost. We each buried something of ourselves. She looked up at him. And now? She asked. Now, he said, we choose differently. He held out his hand. She took it. They left the cemetery side by side. The road back to the estate was the same road he had traveled so many mornings alone in a carriage heavy with sadness. Today, they walked some of it on foot, talking in low voices. What will we do with the house? She asked. With the dinners and the callers and all the people who once filled it with noise? We will open it to those who come honestly, he said. and close it to those who come only to measure our worth. Fewer guests, perhaps, better evenings. And court, she asked. Will you go? Less often, he said. I will not abandon my duties, but I will not throw us back into circles that fatten themselves on intrigue. The world is changing. If I must stand somewhere when it shifts, I prefer to stand where I can see the people my decisions touch, not only those who drink my wine. She smiled. You speak as I once did, she said. You were ahead of me, he replied. I am catching up. They walked in silence for a few steps. Do you think, she asked carefully, that we will ever be ordinary again? He shook his head. I hope not, he said. Ordinary people do not get the chance to die and return and choose again. We do. Let us be anything but ordinary. And if fear comes back, she said, if I wake in the night and wonder if they are plotting in corners I cannot see, then wake me, he replied. Shake me, scold me, drag me from my desk if you must. We will face it together. I would rather be frightened with you than calm without you. Her fingers tightened in his. And if sorrow comes back, he added, if there are days when the weight of what we did, what we almost lost, presses on your chest, then I will find you, she said, wherever you are. In the stables, in the council room, at your desk. I will put this ribboned hand on your shoulder and remind you that we are not in that dark year anymore. He glanced at the ribbon around her wrist and smiled. Deal, he said. They were quiet as the estate came into view. The house stood as it always had, but the sight of it no longer felt like approaching a tomb. It looked for the first time in a long time like a place where life might happen. At the door, Claire waited, arms folded, trying to look stern and failing. Well, she called, have the dead made peace with their grave? Yes, Elise said. We have forgiven it for existing. And yourselves? Claire asked. We are working on that, Louis replied. Claire sniffed. Good, she said, because I will not live in a house where everyone walks as if on eggshells. There is soup on the fire and bread in the oven. I expect to hear voices at table, not sighs. You will hear both, Elise said, but we will start with voices. They went inside together. That evening, the dining room did not echo as much as usual. The table was not full of guests. Only a few chairs were occupied. The doctor, Claire, 2 servants who had served them for years and were now included not as staff, but as witnesses to a new beginning. They ate, they spoke, they laughed once or twice, awkwardly at first, then more easily. When the candles burned low and the others withdrew, Louis and Elise walked out onto the terrace. The sky was clear. You know, she said, there will always be people who do not believe what we told them. Some will say I was never truly dead. Some will say you were mad for a time. Some will say we invented a story to excuse our choices. And which story will you tell yourself? He asked. She looked at him. That once, she said softly, fear and love drove me to bury my own life. That once, pride and sorrow led you to let others speak for you. And that one day, in a quiet room and a crowded church and a small cemetery, we chose to stop living, as if we belonged to the dead. That is a better story, he said. It is ours, she replied. He stepped closer. No more graves, he said. Only doors, she answered. And if one closes, we find another. He took her hands in his. Elise, he said, whatever comes, whatever the world does around us, remember this. I would rather walk through uncertainty with you than stand on solid ground alone. She smiled, eyes shining. I remember, she said, and I would rather face danger beside you than keep you safe by disappearing. He drew her gently into his arms, a touch both familiar and new. She rested her head against his shoulder, listening to the steady beat of his heart. For a long moment, there were no words. Some love stories are built on grand gestures, on fireworks and triumphs. Theirs now rested on something quieter and stronger, on truth spoken even when it hurt, on hands that did not let go even when the world insisted they should, on the simple, stubborn choice to live fully in the same life, instead of separately in the safety of imagined deaths. At last, she lifted her head. Louis, she murmured. Yes? Tomorrow, she said. We will have much to do. Papers to untangle, rooms to open, fears to soothe. Yes, he agreed. But tonight, she continued, may we simply be a man and a woman who found each other again? He looked at her, his expression tender. Yes, he said. Tonight. That is all we have to be. And hand in hand, leaving behind the grave that had never truly held her and the shadows that had almost claimed him, they stepped back into the house, toward the shared days and ordinary miracles that awaited them. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you like the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories, full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.